Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ms. Alita. That was good though this time.
That was very good this time.
We beat you on the table, just wanna
You
put
did.
that on.
You beat the teacher. I mean, how does that happen? So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 5,690th meeting of the Rotary Club of Chicago. I'm Alita Williams, the current president of our club, and with that, we will start the meeting. So we normally have a thought of the day, so we don't have one. So I just want to say it's the beginning of Black History Month. And so Eric had a really great quote last week. And I just want us to remember that there are great months every month of the year. I mean, Black History is an amazing month, and I've noticed this year, like watching the History Channel and just seeing all the focus. Actually, they had like 5 shows on in a row on the History Channel about the contributions of African Americans to the military in the First World War and the Second World War that are just now being recognized and honored. And so I just want us to always remember that there's always a little bit more to the story, to our history that may not always be told. And so we should always try to go a little bit deeper and look for that history. And so we have a wonderful speaker today, Dennis Mellen. And as always, let's keep everyone's time, keep questions succinct, keep everything questions to 1 per person. And with that, Robert Harney is going to introduce our speaker.
Dennis Mellen is a speaker, a leadership consultant, best-selling author, and internationally recognized author on leadership. A retired Army Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and 28-year airline fleet captain in charge of 550 pilots. Dennis' years of experience bring education, inspiration, and entertainment to a variety of audiences throughout his positive leadership training. You may have caught him on ABC, NBC's Morning Blend Show, CBS, podcasts, and radio. He recently spoke on stage at the United States Air Force Academy with 4-time Olympian luge competitor Ruben Gonzalez, and in Grand Rapids at a Leading Voice Summit. I've known Dennis. Dennis is part of a group of mine. Dennis, you can come on up. And it's really great that we're able to be honored to have Dennis speak with us tonight.
Thanks very much. While we're waiting to get the slides up. Oh, there. Go start right out into it. Next slide, please. While we're waiting for that, I just happened to have a good story from the other day. My wife is a nurse. She came home late the other night, and I met her at the door with a glass of wine, and we sat down on the couch, and I put my arm around her, and she takes a sip of the wine, and she goes, "I love you. I don't know how I could get along without you." And I said, "Heidi, is that the wine, or is that you talking?" And she said, "No, it's me talking to the wine." So anyway, we're still, there we go. Now we have some technical difficulties here.
We're getting there. Patience.
We may have to just go with the slides this way and just scroll down. If we could go all the way to the number 1 slide, that'd be great.
First, we feel for your affiliation with Robert. It can't be easy.
Okay, let's try it one more time. Can you advance slides this way or? Okay, there we go. I'm 3 weeks into rehab. When I go into the doctor for some tests and a routine checkup, when in our chatter back and forth, I casually ask him in my best Top Gun Tom Cruise voice, "So Doc, how much longer am I going to be in rehab before I can return to flying?" He snaps his head around at me and he looks at me like I'm some sort of two-headed monster. He says, "Dennis, you've had some serious heart damage. You're never going to fly again." I can feel the room closing in on me and this warm flushness coming up my neck. Tears are welling in my eyes. And I want to reach out and grab him by the throat. "What do you mean I'm never going to fly again? This is all I've wanted to do." Go ahead and next slide, please. You're ripping a 10-year-old's dream away from him. How did I get here? Next slide, please. It wasn't a quantum leap for me. At 10 years old, I'm sitting at my father's Air Force base at the end of the runway, when this F-4 Phantom comes screaming by in full afterburner. I can feel it in my lungs as it goes roaring by. I'm pumping my fists. I turn to my dad. "Dad, that's what I want to do when I grow up." Of course, my wife says I haven't reached that point yet, but we're still working on that. It wasn't a quantum leap for me. I thought the best way the best way for me to become a professional pilot was to go to the Air Force Academy and then go to Air Force pilot training. Out of Air Force pilot training, next slide, please, I was assigned this big air refueling tanker, carrying some 66,000 gallons of gas. We went on missions all over the world. We went on long missions. We went on dangerous missions. It was exciting stuff. I loved my job. I loved going to work. I get to go to work every day. At about the 6-year point, I realized, I can continue flying the same airplane and pursue a job with a major airline. So I got hired by Alaska Airlines. By 1996, I'd been flying in the Air Force for 20 years, and I decided that was enough. I retired as a lieutenant colonel. And from Alaska Airlines, well, we'll get into that. Go ahead and go next slide, please. By 2008, I'd been flying some 35 plus years, and I still loved going to work every day. It was about the same time that I took up mountain bike riding for health reasons, but for recreational reasons too. You can't imagine the thrill of climbing up one of those hills east of Seattle in the foothills of the Cascades. Next slide, please. And then coasting down in between the trees, like you're slalom skiing at some resort in Colorado. One day I picked out a trail in the trail guide listed as IAB, which stands for well, we won't get into the B word, but it's described in the trail guide as a 500-foot climb within 1 mile between some 150-foot tall Douglas fir trees, over rocks and stumps and fallen logs. You can go to the next slide, please. About halfway up that hill, I start feeling a little numbness in my arms. I said, boy, I really picked a tough trail to climb up today. A few moments later, I'm clutching at my chest. I fall off my bike. I'm unconscious on a remote trail east of Seattle in the foothills. I'm unconscious on the trail. 2 hikers happened upon me. They promptly called 911. I'm still unconscious. The EMTs drive their truck as far as they can. Then they have to hump about 100 pounds of equipment each up that same trail that I had just struggled with. They load me up on a portable gurney and whisk me off to a hospital about a half an hour away. Along the way, still unconscious, they have to shock me 25 times. Another 20 times in the ER. I am so lucky to be here and to have all my faculties, although my friends may claim otherwise. In the ER, they found out that I had a genetic condition that caused blockage of the lateral anterior descending artery, otherwise known as the widowmaker. So I'm very definitely lucky to be here. Next slide, please. This brings me to the point where I'm returning from the doctor's office after that devastating news. You all have received devastating news. That news where this dark cloud just descends upon you and you're just frozen in time. You don't know what to do. This is all I'd wanted to do for some 35 plus years, and now I couldn't do it. I spent weeks and months sitting in a Barker Lounger with the remote control, going through the channels. Didn't care when I ate, when I slept. No, I don't need a set of Ginsu knives or a Chia Pet. And Medicare Part B, I'm still just a little bit too young for that. Infomercials, just go away. Now, the upside is I do know what every one of those buttons on the remote do now. So that was a positive thing. Next slide, please. After talking with some of my friends and being convinced I needed to move on and yeah, some counseling, I settled upon a few jobs, looking at what Dennis Mellen 2.0 is going to look like. I settled upon a series of jobs, one where I headed up a department of over 600, 700 pilots and 50 instructors. Another one where I was a consultant for a safety consulting company that traveled worldwide. I went to Nairobi, Kenya with Kenya Airways. I went to Manila in the Philippines, and it was exciting work, but it just didn't capture that excitement of I get to go to work. And then one day, next slide, please. This lady, and here I am walking around at the place that I work, like that proverbial old guy that walks the hallways, talking about his could have, would have, should have been in the NFL, but for that nagging knee injury. Then one day, this lady friend of mine comes up to me and she says, "Dennis, how'd you like to speak to our group?" I laughed at her. I said, "About what?" She said, "I've seen your resume. You've gone to all those Air Force leadership schools. You're a retired lieutenant colonel. You had 600 pilots that you're in charge of. You could talk about leadership." Next slide, please. It was as if the sky opened up and this bright ray of sunshine fell upon me. I got this warm feeling. I got a smile on my face again. And I started thinking, yeah, I could do that. I could pass on some nuggets so that people wouldn't have to go to the University of Hard Knocks to learn the hard way on some of the lessons that I did. And I might be able to help anybody that I come upon that's interested in leadership. Next slide, please. So as I continue, next slide, please. So as I continue having air going in and out of my lungs, is he still with us? Next slide, please. I want to impart some of those thoughts to you to help you become that leader that we're all looking for. I guess he's frozen or he's... Technical difficulties, we're just rolling with it, right? So as I continue to have air going in and out of my lungs, I want to impart some of those to you. Because we're all in our businesses. We all have companies, we all have businesses, whether you have 2 assistants or 500 assistants. The concepts of leadership are similar. We're in this roiling, boiling pot of water. The volatility, the uncertainty of business. And you as a leader can enter that water as a tiny coffee bean and start spreading your influence through that water and fundamentally changing that water. You can start converting some of your team members into coffee beans with the intent of changing that water into gourmet coffee. We're still going to be in that roiling, boiling pot of water of competition. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the absolute best leadership, how would you score yourself? On that same scale, how would your team score you? Raise your hand if it's a 10 on both of those. So there is a little bit of room for improvement in there, right? I'm trying to get my other glasses out now so I can read some things here. There is room for improvement. And that improvement comes from the mentoring, the courses that you can take, the workshops, the symposiums, that constantly improving things. Was there a difference between what your team members think of your leadership and what you think your leadership is? Perhaps it's the same number, perhaps it's not. But the fact of the matter is as you look at your leadership, your perspective changes. For instance, you've seen that I put these glasses on, but are they really needed? That's your perspective. That's what you need to change in the way of how you look at your leadership. Next slide, please. So what I want to do today, every company has a report card. It might be a financial statement. It might be key metrics like your sales for the month or something. In a lot of companies, they have KPIs, key performance indicators. What if I could give you the ultimate key performance indicator that would drive all your other the rest of your report card? Would you be interested in that? I'm going to use the acronym or the abbreviation KPI. And the first letter of that is K for culture. If you'll let me have a little poetic license here. What is culture? It's the way we do things. It's the way we interact with each other. It's the very thing that we do on a daily basis. If you don't have a good culture, you're going to get the bare minimum from your employees. They're going to do exactly what's in their job description and nothing more. Okay? They're going to need constant guidance from you. They're going to be focused on their own goals to the exclusion of everybody else's. So how can we counter that? Next slide, please.
Excuse me, delivery.
Okay. What we can do is, most of the time, the mission, the purpose comes from the leader of the group, the CEO, the president, the owner. What if when we decide on what our mission is, what our goal is, no matter if you're on a project as a project manager, what if we brought in a few other people to this, to put it in their own words, what the mission is? Can you see where that gets the buy-in? Can you see where you're starting to convert them into coffee beans so that when they go back to the rest of the team, they start spreading the influence? That mission becomes everybody's mission because they see how their goals are tied into the company's goals. Another way you can do that is whether you have a few employees or 500, allowing them to learn new software. If this software helps them save time so that they can do other things, they're going to start thinking of things that they can help out with the company. Or if you're developing your next generation of leaders, sending them to workshops, sending them to mentors to help them learn new ways of doing it. Now, how does this work? Next slide, please. Okay. In practice, I worked for a company out of Rockford that flew international cargo and troops to the Middle East. And when I first came there, they'd just gone through a downsizing. So everybody was hunkered down in their own silos, taking care of their own report cards to the exclusion of everybody else. Unbeknownst to me, I come in as an extrovert and I want to get to know who I'm working with. I want to get to know and trust them. So I start this Friday lunch bunch where we go out on Fridays. And yeah, we talked a little bit of business, but we would find out things like Joanne has 3 kids in college and she's struggling to make payments. Or Bob over here has 2 parents that are in long-term care. Do you think those outside things are affecting their work? Absolutely. And if we can help them through that period of time or assist them, they're going to feel obligated to work harder, to find new ideas. And if they can clear up their problems, they're going to want to help somebody else on their problems. We're creating a synergism. So by me doing this, we were starting to trust each other. So I no longer had to go from me to my boss, to their boss, to them to get something done. We were talking directly because we built up this trust between each other. Now, by about the 6th or 7th week, I had about 8 or 10 department heads and directors attending on a regular basis. And what we noticed is after about 6 weeks to 2 months, an immediate 10% uptick in on-time arrivals. Fewer bags lost, fewer passenger complaints. And if you look at any airline, those 3 things are key performance indicators for all the airlines. And we were improving them because we were working efficiently. We were starting to spread through that water, starting to create some gourmet coffee. Next slide, please. Reflection question on this. Ask yourself this. Am I connecting my team members with the team's goals? Am I connecting them with the team's goals? Next slide, please. The second one that I want to talk about is the P, positive leadership. Positive leadership isn't that Pollyanna, oh, everything's okay, we all getting along. It's looking at every challenge that comes to us and finding the opportunity. Because no matter what business we're in, even in life, events come flying at us. We have no control over theirs. There's going to be an outcome. What we do as leaders, what we do as team members, what we do in life to alter, change, or affect that outcome is the very essence of leadership, of whether you're leading yourself or others. If you don't have that positive leadership, because we're in this constant volatility, if we do nothing, there's still going to be an outcome. Negativity will fill that gap. No, we can't do that. That's the stupidest idea I ever heard. I don't want to do that. You know, all those little things that start creeping in because we're not working together. We miss out on opportunities. We miss out on options. So how do we deal with that? Next slide, please. ADAPT, a Navy SEAL acronym. DWI. Not driving while intoxicated, but rather deal with it. As in, oh no, we're surrounded by the enemy. We're running out of ammunition. Deal with it. Because the alternative is we're going to be killed or captured. Now, hopefully in your business, those things won't happen, but you can admit that there are dire consequences to not dealing with an event that comes to you, right? So we adapt that. And what that does is we're constantly looking for the opportunity. We're constantly trying to improve. We inspire innovation. Team members are engaged. So we get that synergistic effect. Next slide, please. Case study on this. A few years back, I took a crew of 15 up to Anchorage, Alaska. Our daily mission was to fly south over the North Pacific, about 2 hours, meet up with a giant C-5 cargo airplane, refuel them so they wouldn't have to make a fuel stop in Anchorage, and they could continue on to Korea or Japan, and then we would return to Anchorage. On the last day, we were tasked with doing the same thing, coming back to Anchorage, refueling, and then going to Hawaii. Well, one of the crew members came up to me because we had this positive look for the opportunity, said, you know, Colonel Mellen, if we put enough fuel on the airplane, when we finish up refueling that C-5, instead of coming back about 2.5 hours to Anchorage and then 2 hours to the same point on the way to Hawaii, we can just turn south and go straight to Hawaii. We ran the numbers well within safe tolerances, and that's what we did. So instead of coming all the way back to Anchorage, and just from fuel costs, now this is a few years back, but this was significant, just in fuel costs, we saved about $175,000. Now I was thinking this as I was driving in, that's about how much it's costing me to fill the gas tank on my car right now. But anyway, we had the added benefit that all 15 of us were on the beach in Hawaii before sunset with Mai Tais in the hand. Now, how's that for an optimal solution? Okay, next slide, please. Reflection question on this one. Does my leadership style challenge us to find the opportunities? Am I getting those employees engaged because we're looking for the next opportunity? Next slide, please. The final letter is I, for interrelationships, not just the interrelationships between the leader and the team members, but between team members, between other teams, to the rest of the company, and maybe to the clients. If we don't have those interrelationships built, then you become the single decision maker. Everybody is waiting on your directions. You're taking all the inputs. It's the epitome of micromanaging. We lose out on options. We lose out on innovation because everybody's just waiting. They're doing the minimum. We build those interrelationships and we get that commitment and caring with each other. Next slide, please. How do we easy action steps on that? Now, again, it's a philosophy here, but we developed this speak up culture. And I've used culture with a K again. Speak up culture, where positive, purposeful, and productive conversations can occur on a regular basis without fear of retribution or shame. All the ideas are open. We're getting people engaged. We get to know our team. We're building that commitment and trust between each other, that connection that we need to ignite that elite performance that we're looking for. Next slide, please. Example of this. I work for an airline whose home base was up in Wisconsin. We had pilot bases in LaGuardia, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Norfolk, Virginia. And we did our pilot training clear down in North Carolina. Next slide, please. Now, all of you can see, Dennis, your group had a serious communications problem, and we did. It wasn't towards any safety issue or anything, but we saw a negative trend in our trend analysis on check rides, over the shoulders in flight, and in the classroom. So I was scratching my head. How do I can't go to 650 pilots and talk to each one, because I had inputs coming from the FAA, from the company, and from the aircraft manufacturer that I needed to get out. We lack those peer-to-peer relationships. And if I send it out as an email, well, we've all done that, I'm probably going to get 650 different interpretations of that email. But what I did have was I had about 40 or 45 instructors that I could use as coffee beans. I didn't know the concept at the time, but as coffee beans, and spread the word that way. So in the days before Zoom, I found money in my budget to buy these big widescreen monitors, those old Spider conference call phones and associated peripheries, and I essentially had Zoom calls with those instructors, and now they were creating, spreading through that water, getting that message out, improving our communications. Next slide, please. What happened was we saw an immediate uptick in our trend analysis in a positive direction. So I scratched my head and said, you know what? I'm not a dummy. Let's try 2 a month. Well, it wasn't as dramatic, but nevertheless in a positive direction, all because we were building these interrelationships, getting those connections and that trust between us. Which brings me to my reflection question for you. Ask yourself, in my team, do we have a speak up culture? Can we hold those positive, purposeful, productive conversations? Remember, your perception was I was wearing glasses. You may not have the right perception of how things are working with your team. So it's important to create this culture. It's important to have that one person that tends to be a thorn in your side, but maybe not not always coming up, we can't do that, but nevertheless coming up with ideas that are counter to what the rest of the group is saying. Next slide, please. So here we are. Culture, positive leadership, and interrelations. This can be your new KPI to drive the rest of your report card. I know I can see it in your faces that you see where this can help you with your strategies, your performance, your optimization, your success rate. But I see some quizzical looks on your face going, I don't know where even to start. Next slide, please. What if I could give you that first step? They say the first step in any journey is the hardest. And you guys have seen the possibilities and the strategies here. What if I could give you that first step? Next slide, please. Based on my 35 plus years of leadership, I want to give you a free gift of my Elite Performance Blueprint. 4 action items, next slide please, that give you definitive things that you can do to build the communications, to make the connections with your team members and between teams, to get that commitment out of all your employees, that engagement, and the caring. So you're asking, how do I get that? Next slide, please. On your table in front of you, there are some index cards. You can fill it out with your contact and check the appropriate box for the Elite Performance Blueprint. Or you can email me at dennis@fullthrottleLeadership.com, and I will email you my Elite Performance Blueprint. Next slide, please. Furthermore, as you look at this, when you went through those reflection questions, did you answer no to any of those? If you did, next slide, please. I have a way to help you out. On those index cards, or if you point your camera up at this QR code, you can go to my calendar. We can set up a time to sit down and discuss where there might be some leadership gaps in your leadership, see what we can do to fill those in. And in the process, we can see what you and I working together on these would look like. We could see what working together would look like. Next slide, please. Because my goal today has been to impart to you the ultimate KPI, but I also want to help you in the future. Now, if you have an upcoming speaking event and you need a speaker, helping one person at a time has been my goal. So I'm open to that. Dennis@fullthrottleLeadership.com. My phone number, 425-681-8652. Reiterating or concluding here. Next slide, please. Why is it so critical for you to become a bean? Next slide, please. Disengaged employees are costing you 18% of your payroll and lost performance. That's a lot to recover. It appears in lost opportunities, fewer options, delayed decisions, and those don't appear on any financial statement. You may see some absenteeism and turnover rates, but other than that, you won't see it. My goal today, next slide please, has been to get you to realize how important it is for you to be a bean, transform your team from ordinary water into gourmet coffee starting today. Thank you very much.
So do we have any questions? We don't have a separate microphone today, so I get to be being at the microphone.
Yeah, hide before I ask you questions, right?
They knew they gave it to you, T-Bones.
All right. So first of all, I commend you for spelling the word culture with K, because one of the most defining civilizations for culture is European, and some of them spelled with K. So thank you for that. But more importantly, I think one of your earliest, you had the 4 action items. I appreciate that. But you had one, I took a picture, team member input to purpose. And I'm in the middle of generations. I am bordering on old fart, but not quite yet. I might keep it to yourself. Anyway, you said team member input to purpose. We're, I think, at an inflection point where people are asked to come back to the office, and a lot of young people simply just don't get it. They don't want to come home, back to the office. They want to stay home. And the leadership is trying to incentivize them to come. So yes, I want to hear them, but by the same token, they're not doing them, in my mind, but maybe I'm old school, they're not doing themselves a favor. So I'm fighting this balance between I can lead and dictate what's going to happen, or I can listen and it's going to go, in my mind, the wrong direction. How much listening do you think I should do?
Wow, that's a kind of loaded question. Listen, listening is very critical. There are, we're dealing with generations where a lot of the business is conducted over text messages. If you're like me, it's kind of abhorrent. I would rather be right here with the leader, being able to talk to her face to face, look at her face, find all the nonverbal cues and everything, because we all know, well, maybe not everybody, but a message sent on a text, 80% is nonverbal in how you speak to them. It is a problem because they're realizing that I can accomplish all these things at home and I don't have to deal with anybody. But we have to emphasize how important those relationships are. And, you can't, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Zoom calls during COVID, yeah, I was dressed up from here, but I usually had sweatpants or barefooted or, and I've heard other ways of dressing, but it was one of those things. You're not communicating that way. And in today's world, communicating is so important. You have to give in a little bit to the younger generation because that's the way they communicate. But they also have to have a little give there too. So am I answering your question, or am I tap dancing like everybody does on this?
Tap dancing, that's good.
Well,
I'm as lost as you are, that's why I asked the question.
Well, the only thing you can do is emphasize how important being in person means, because that looking at a face or looking at a text message is not 80% of that message is gone, and I alluded to it. I can't put out a message to 650 pilots because I have 650 different interpretations. I needed somebody to be there face to face. You can't fly an airplane remotely. Well, maybe in the future, but you can't, the coordination between the two, between the entire crew has to be there. We ran into a little bit of that when we had to lock up the cockpit door and have all these codes go in and out. We had to find new ways of communicating and getting the message across. So the messages have to be succinct. They have to be interpreted one way. Two sets of eyes for every message that goes out, especially if it's going out to more than one person. But those interrelationships are invaluable. I don't see any way around it. I see a way of having a hybrid office where they only come in like Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays or something like that. That I can see. But still, you're still going to have some way of communicating. And I know a lot of companies have other ways of communicating face to face. They have Slack, they have Zoom calls and things like that, but it's still hard. Still hard. And we deal with it. We're dealing with it, right? DWI. What else?
You want to take a seat over here?
No, I'll give you a coffee stress ball. This is a good question. This is a tough question.
Hold that glass a day there, Keegan?
Dennis, I thought you brought up a lot of good points about kind of leading from the front, but I would love to flip the question around. And in your 20 years in the Air Force, I'm sure you've ran into some difficult people to work with. And how do you deal with a difficult leader in front of you, and how do you kind of get them on your team?
Well, I dealt with a difficult leader at one point. And the best way is typically a difficult leader has an ego. And the best way I found was somehow or another to change it around to where it appeared to be his idea. Okay? Because invariably he was going to take credit for it anyway. But you make it his idea. You make it, you have to massage their egos. You have to say, hey, well, maybe instead of saying, we can't do that, how about what if we looked at it this way and kind of develop that thought with them? But it is going to take some strategies on your part to deal with that. You want a stress ball? Who else is it?
Anybody else?
No, I've got more.
Are there any questions on Zoom? Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. Got one more thing. And if I don't break so here's our thank you. It's a wonderful coffee mug and an insert about Al's Cookie Mix. That's who we are supporting this year. My friend Alvin Green started a company because his son is autistic, and he wanted a way for his son to be able and their friends to have jobs after they aged out of the CPS system. And so you get great cookie mixes, which you get to make all your own mix. And then with the QR codes, you get a 10% discount. But you will receive my special mix in the mail.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I just happened to have broken my coffee cup, so
See,
this is gonna
look
fit
at
right in.
that.
Yeah.
See,
What a deal.
what do you think? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, we should have, next slide, please. We need to welcome our visiting Rotarians. We have one international Rotarian. Since we don't have a mic, if you could come on up and introduce yourself. Come on.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for our speaker today. Great for me, and thank you all because you apply me in your club. My name is Danilo Jevnajic, coming from Serbia. I was moved from Serbia before 2 years with my family here in Chicago. I never back in Serbia 100%. And all my family, it's Rotary family because we work and produce everything for Rotary International and for community, our community. I'm past district governor in Serbia in COVID year. From Serbia and Montenegro, we produce, start and finish the global grants 15 in my years. Absolutely record in this part of Europe. My record in one city day when my past city with 30,000 people, I have a big meeting with 360 visitors, 54 clubs and 5 districts coming in my city, because I visited all my friends and clubs before 10 years. This meeting is absolutely record in this part of Europe. My son is charter president for Interact in my city. My doctor is past district representative Interact in Serbia, Montenegro, and my wife and me visited 5 Rotary Convention, 7 zone meeting, Rotary Day in United Nations in New York, Rotary Day in Vatican with PAPS 2, and a lot of biggest Rotary meeting around the world. Today we are here in Chicago. My family is very happy my children say me, thank you, Father, because moved here, our future is perfect here. And today is my dream because I coming in club number 1, mother of all clubs around the world. And in future, I want together with you make project for our city, our community, and help Rotarian around the world. Thank you so much. I'm ready to be your member. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. And we don't have any visiting U.S. Rotarians, but we do have guests of Rotary today. So, Timo, we get to give him the mic again. I'm sorry.
I have a guest right here. Sit up for 1 second. Travis, who the hell are you? Why was I coerced into this uncomfortable position to bring you? No, you introduce yourself. What's your name? That was my intro to you. So.
Travis Nafsker. My father-in-law used to work with Timo back in the day, and we're talking about ways to kind of give back and meet some more people in Chicago. And he thought, what a great place to come and meet some of you guys, you fine folk, and hear a great speech from Dennis as well. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Consider me a new member. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. And we're sorry, Timo, was your first introduction to Rotary, but you know, it'll be okay. Oh. Okay, so next up, announcements. If you'd like to expand your business and network in the community, please join our club. You can email the office and they will gladly send you a membership application. Next slide. And these are wonderful speakers. We have great speakers, as you can hear today, that come to speak to us. And so if you know of a great speaker as a member that you think would be great for us to have, let us know. You can contact the office or Eric Kemple, who is our programming chair. Next. Our volunteer opportunities every Wednesday. We volunteer at the Cornerstone between 2 to 5 or 5 to 7:30. From 2 to 5, you work in the kitchen and help set up. And then from 5 to 7:30, we actually package all the meals and serve our guests that come inside. So we are always looking for people to come out to be a part. Next slide. And it is now time for the dictionary project. West Westerfield is our leader on that. We go to Chicago grammar schools and we give dictionaries to third graders, because that's when we found out that's that point where they're the most curious and when they're really excited to get their own book. And what we've also learned is sometimes for some of those students, it's the first book that's just theirs, that they don't have to share with their brothers or sisters or wasn't handed down to them. So the dictionary project is a great program, and it's actually a pretty great dictionary. I mean, it has everything in it, all the presidents, all the countries, all the states, all the capitals of whatever they are that year that it was made. But it's a really great dictionary. Next. And calling employers, our Job One program has started. We're open to applications, and now we just need employers to employ our wonderful students. For those who may not know, our Job One program is our signature program of the club, in which we recruit Chicago high school juniors and seniors, and we recruit great employers to not just be employers, but to be in a mentorship opportunity to help those students understand what it's like to work in a business environment and all the great things that are available to them. And so for many students, this is their first true business job that's out there. So we're looking for employers. And it is time for our birthday. February 23rd is the 119th year of Rotary being in existence, for, as I say sometimes, for good or bad. We started it all, and so we're having a wonderful birthday party with food, fun, and Fernando. Fernando Jones is a blues artist that is going to be our entertainment that night. So we are looking forward to celebrating and hope everyone can come out. Please purchase your tickets on Chicago Way. Purchase often. And we started Rotary Means Business downtown Chicago last night. Thank you, Timo, for hosting us at your office. It was a great opportunity to meet new people and to bring the business networking option back to Rotary that some places have lost, but we're trying to bring it all back and make it awesome. Don't forget to donate to the Rotary Foundation. The Rotary Foundation is how we do all the amazing international service projects that we accomplish. Like we have a great trip to Bolivia to see the great things that we've done. We build wells and build schools and do many, many things around the country. Stem cell, cryovac in Ukraine, all those great things. And those things can't happen without the Rotary Foundation because the money that we donate to the foundation comes back to the club and it kind of matches what we donate. So it's a great way to double and sometimes triple our impact in different countries. And for our members, you can download the Ignite app. It's a great way to sign up members who say, I'm interested, and you can send them an application directly from your phone. You can do service selfies, and you can sign up and pay your bill online right from your phone. And then that's our QR code to our gyrator so that you can see our weekly newsletter. These are all our wonderful committees. Please feel free to join any of these committee meetings. All of our committee meetings are held on Zoom now, so it's a lot easier to be able to attend a meeting. And these are up every Friday. We have lunch in the ULC on the 4th floor, our round table where we just get together and have a good time and talk over lunch. We have Janice Sislick, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, on the 13th. Fernando Jones is going to speak to us on February 20th, and then you get to hear the stylings of Fernando Jones on the 23rd, and then Richard Siegler on February 27th. Yes. Eric, can you go back one? That is a typo. It is at noon, and we will correct that. Thank you, Sarah. Next slide. That teacher eyes, that's why she's there. Also for our members, just please remember we have to give our final numbers to the Union League Club Fridays at 9 a.m. So if you decide Friday at 5 p.m. or Monday morning at 9 a.m. that you can no longer make it to the meeting, we are very sorry, but you'll be donating too. You'll be donating your lunch because we have to pay for it at that point. Next slide. And with that, that is the end of our meeting, and everyone can stand so we can say the four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Number 1. Is it true? Number 2. Is it fair to all concerned? Number 3. Will it build better friendships? And number 4. Will be beneficial to all concerned. And the new one, number 5, will it be fun? All right, and with that, I adjourn the meeting.